Hello everybody, back with another cEDH deck tech. I'm going to try to do a couple more of these. I'm going to try to do some on some fringe decks and some main decks that I play. So I figured I might as well start off with one of my favorite decks, Malcolm Kediss. So I'm going to talk a bit in depth about the commanders, options in general, and then I'll hop into the deck. So we'll start off with the commanders. We have two of them. Malcolm, Keen-Eyed Navigator, 2 colorless, 1 blue. It's a legendary Siren Pirate. It's a 2/2 flyer that says whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage to your opponents, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. And it has partner, so you could pick a partner. For this deck, we're choosing to play Kediss. Kediss Emberclaw Familiar is 1 colorless, 1 red for an elemental wizard. It says whenever a commander you control deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to each other opponent and has partner. So the big thing with this deck, ideally, with most Malcolm decks, is you want to get Malcolm down fast. Ideally turn 1, but you can do turn 2. The goal is to have Malcolm down fast so that you can hit turn 2 and start creating treasures. Now, if you guys are interested in Malcolm at all, there are plenty of options, and a lot of them do multiple different things. It kind of depends on what color that you would like. If you wanted to add black, then you could always do something like Timna and have Malcolm as just a way to create treasures and to draw cards. If you wanted to add Vial Smasher, then you get access to black, which gives you tutors and gives you other options in the Grixis shell. But for this deck, I'm choosing to use Kediss because we are able to play Malcolm turn 1, turn 2, play Kediss, move to combat, hit an opponent with Malcolm, which will trigger Malcolm to create a treasure, and it'll trigger Kediss to deal the damage to the other 2. You'll deal the damage to the other 2, create 2 treasures, and then you'll create your 1 treasure. So the big thing with this is, 1, it gives you 2 separate triggers that a pirate has dealt damage to create a treasure, which is very important for this deck in particular and the way that I build it. But also, you'll be able to create 3 treasures every time you go to combat, as long as you can connect with a player. It's not often in a cEDH match that all 3 players have flying blockers that they're fine with blocking. Malcolm is a 2/2, so oftentimes the flyers that they have, like a Birds of Paradise or something, aren't going to trade favorably. So, as I said with Malcolm, the big thing is that it's whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage. Kediss is only combat damage, so it will only trigger when Malcolm hits, creating the treasures. But Malcolm says whenever a pirate you control deals damage, you create a treasure token for each opponent. So we'll talk a little bit about the deck and cards that I choose in particular. But like I said, this is a focused deck. It is Malcolm focused specifically. It does have backup plans, as you can probably see from the description up there. But it's a layered deck with a lot of overlap, a lot of resiliency, a lot of consistency, and you'll see why as soon as we start getting into the deck. So, if you look at the creature package, there are small pirates that are there, like Siren Storm Tamer, Spectral Sailor, and Spyglass Siren. Those are if we're going to play a turn 2 Malcolm. It's nice to have a 1-drop pirate that you can play. That way, turn 2, you can play Malcolm, connect with one of these pirates, and immediately create a treasure, setting yourself up for possible turn 3. There are the creatures that you want to turn into pirates, which is the big gimmick of a decent amount of Kediss versions, but specifically mine is focused on. So Weft Stalker, Reckless Fireweaver, Sunshot, all kind of do the same thing, sort of. So Sunshot is going to say tap 2 untapped artifacts or creatures you control to deal 1 damage to each opponent. And the big thing with that is if you're able to turn this into a pirate, and then you were to tap 2 artifacts, you're going to deal 1 damage to each opponent, which is going to trigger Malcolm to create you 3 treasures. And you can tap 2 of those treasures to activate the ability again. So there are a couple creatures. This is one of them, and Xiao Jun is another one, where you can tap them to do it, and you'll be able to combo off that way. You also have Reckless Fireweaver, which used to be the biggest one, but for me, it is currently Weft Stalker. This is an absolute unit of a card. They both, Reckless Fireweaver and Weft Stalker, do a similar thing where whenever an artifact enters, it deals 1 damage each opponent. The big thing is Weft Stalker is a 3, but you can warp it in for 1 red. So for just 1 red, you could throw this on the battlefield. If it's a pirate, start to combo off pretty easily. So those are the main goals with the deck. We run Drift of Phantasms and we run Muddle the Mixture as ways to be able to transmute. So to transmute, you pay 1 blue, or 1 colorless, 2 blue, you discard the card, and then you can search your library for a card with the same CMC. So Muddle the Mixture is 2, Drift of Phantasms is 3. The goal with these are to tutor out the pieces that you need to be able to win the game. So we have all of the combo pieces at 3 and all of the combo pieces at 2 to be able to pivot in the direction that we need to. If we are setting up for, let's say, an Underworld Breach combo, we can use Muddle the Mixture to go get Underworld Breach so that we could start the loop. If we're looking at doing the pirate thing, we have Reckless Fireweaver at 2 and we have Weft Stalker at 3. So we're able to get both sides of that combo. But as you'll see, when we get down to the other section of it, we also have ways to turn creatures into pirates that are also the exact same CMC, because that allows us to easily transmute the Drift of Phantasms into an enchantment that says choose a creature type. Makes everything a pirate. So that's the overall goal with the deck. We also play NivMiz Perun, which is just a unit with Curiosity or Ophidian Eye. It also is amazing if you're able to land it down and you have a way of making it a pirate. If we have the enchantment, or if we have like a Maskwood Nexus on the battlefield, then NivMiz becomes a pirate. That means that every time you draw a card, you're going to deal a damage and create a treasure. Quickly, that starts to get out of control and makes it almost impossible to lose. VV Orniteer is a similar thing too, where every time we cast a non-creature spell, we're going to put a +1 counter on VV, and then we're going to deal a damage to each opponent. So if this is a pirate, this is going to create 3 treasures every time we cast a non-creature spell. But if we have out Curiosity or Ophidian Eye on VV, this is also going to be cast a non-creature spell, create 3 treasures, draw 3 cards. Quickly, you can see how this gets out of control. The only other creatures really worth mentioning in this are Professional Facebreaker, which are going to help create us more treasures. Ragavan, it's going to help us create more treasures. Magda, which you're able to sack 5 treasures to get NivMiz or to get Maskwood Nexus to win. Mockingbird is a clone. Imperial Recruiter can help get us out multiple of our pieces. Simian Spirit Guide can be exiled to create mana. Wan Shi Tong has been pretty much amazing in every deck I've played it in, but it's especially good in decks that you're not playing Thassa's Oracle, because the ability is not a May ability. So this is X blue Bird Spirit. It's a 1/1 with flash, flying, and vigilance, and when it enters, you put 1/1 counter on him. You put X 1/1 counters. Then you draw half X cards rounded down. Whenever an opponent searches their library, put a +1 counter on Wan Shi and then draw a card. So the other part of this deck really comes down to landing draw engines or providing yourself with some kind of value in that direction. Obviously, with Malcolm Kediss, you can create an insane amount of treasures, and you could easily have 12 plus mana on turn 4. So really, it's the other side of it is trying to get that value to then push for a win. Now that we're done talking about the creatures that are here, for the most part, I want to talk about one that I have skipped over, and that is Glinthorn Buccaneer. I'm sure this would be no surprise if you guys have ever seen a Malcolm deck, but Glinthorn is the main combo for Malcolm. It is 1 red Minotaur Pirate. It has haste and it's a 2/4. It says whenever you discard a card, Glinthorn deals 1 damage to each opponent. So for 1 and a red, you could discard a card and draw a card. You can only activate that ability while it is attacking. So you go to combat, attack, connect with Malcolm, create your treasures. Before leaving combat, pay 2, discard a card, draw a card, Glinthorn activates. You'll then deal 1 damage to each opponent, which will create you 3 treasures. You can then save one of the treasures, use 2 of them to activate Glinthorn again. As long as you have enough cards in library, you kill the table, which in a cEDH game, you're almost certainly going to have that happen. It's very rare that you're in a weird situation where you try to go for this combo when you have less cards or someone has, 80, 90 life. In the situation that does happen, you could always pivot over to Reckless Fireweaver and turn it into a pirate to just combo off. But Glinthorn is the fastest, it's the most universal, the most known way to win. Like I said, Weftstalker is kind of the one that I'm also focusing on for the deck because I enjoy the turning something into a pirate. It helps with the layered combos. It's harder to interact with a lot of the time. So that's about it for the creature package. I will kind of just go section by section, name everything, and then I'll try to maybe hop around and give some insight or some interesting little things that I found since I've been playing the deck. For sorceries, there's really nothing crazy here. Gamble gets you a card. Get Probe, you can see someone's hand. It's very nice if you want to see if you should push for a win or not. It also, if you have Mystical Tutor, you can Mystical Tutor to the top, Gitaxian Probe that card to your hand, which is really nice. Jessica's Will creates mana, gets us cards. Rite of Flame gets us mana. And then Wheel of Fortune and Windfall are very nice. Like I said, a lot of times we could just have so much mana that we have nothing to do. Being able to wheel can oftentimes lead us just into a win. So it's very nice to have those options. We'll talk about the instant package. I'll go through and just highlight each one. I'll try to start from top left to bottom right, so that way it's a little bit easier to follow. Artificial Evolution is a 1-drop spell that turns a creature into a pirate, basically. So we have a couple different ways in the instant package to turn a creature into a pirate. This is a 1-drop way to do so. Born Upon a Wind gives Flash. Brain Freeze combos with Underworld Breach and LED. Commandeer can steal cards. Psych Rift, bounce the thing back to hand, or overload it. Oftentimes, like I said, 7 mana is not crazy. Overloading a Psych Rift can set your opponents way back, which with this deck is very helpful because we do need to have a little bit of setup or a little bit of things go our direction. And it's also just a good piece of interaction if somebody tries to win before us. Deflecting Swat, Fierce Guardianship, they're both, like I said, our commanders are essential to the deck. They're going to be out. We're going to protect them. They need to be there to win. Final Fortune gives us an extra turn. If you don't win at the end of that one, it's game over. A lot of times you could find yourself, like I said, in a situation where you have the win. You just need to figure out how to get the other piece. So sometimes just being able to muddle the mixture to get the piece that you need, and then Final Fortune so you can go to your next turn, so then you could present the combo. Sometimes that could help. It's not a card that's 100% mandatory for the deck, but it's just a very good card in general. Flare of Duplication. It's a way that we can create another free counter spell, basically. After Kediss has done its job, we no longer need Kediss. So when we go to push for a win, sacrificing Kediss to win the game is pretty good. We have counter spells, bounce spells, Intuition. This allows you to search for 3 cards. Basically, your opponent gives you 1 to go to the graveyard. It's a very good way to win with the Underworld Breach style because you can guarantee that you get Lion's Eye Diamond, Brain Freeze, whatever. But the big thing I like this for in the deck is this is 3 mana way to get 3 creatures that you want to turn into a pirate, or 3 ways to turn a creature into a pirate, and your opponents are forced to give you one. So you could say you have nothing in your hand, wait before your end step, tutor up Weftstalker, Reckless Fireweaver, and something else, and say, give me one of these creatures. And then next turn, play one of those creatures, go to combat, turn to pirate, win the game. March, interaction, counterspell, counterspell, counterspell. Muddle the mixture, like I said, 1, 2 blue, discard it, go search for a 2-drop only as a sorcery. But we play Wings of Velas Veils, which is a way to turn a creature into a pirate for 2 mana. Mystical Tutor, Pact, these are all cards that everybody knows except for Trickery Charm. The main part of it is it can turn a creature into a pirate, but the last line on there, look at the top 4 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. That can be very important if you're really just trying to dig for an answer or you're trying to dig for the correct card before your turn. So as you can see, decent amount of interaction. Once we're set up and we're doing things, I want to be able to win the game. I don't want people interacting with me. And I also want to stop those early win attempts so that I can actually pop off on turn 3 or 4. So we'll hop over the artifact package. There's fast mana in here, so there's no point in really talking about the fast mana. We all know what Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, Mox Opal does, stuff like that. The only thing really worth mentioning out of all of this is Mox Opal is incredibly free. I know that a lot of people struggle with getting Mox Opal online in some decks. Now that Mana Crypt and Dockside and stuff like that aren't in the format anymore, but when you have Malcolm in the command zone, just Malcolm connecting one time gets you 3 treasures. So Mox Opal goes online very easy. Defense Grid and Vexing Bauble are in here for protection. Landing a Defense Grid and then presenting your combo oftentimes is enough to win. We have Imposter Mech. As I said, I like to control the board. I think that controlling the board gives us the best chance of winning in this deck. So Imposter Mech being able to copy something like an Orcish Bowmaster can give us that power instead of allowing someone else to have it. There's also just too many good creatures nowadays in the format to, in my opinion, avoid playing Imposter Mech. Just someone landing a Grand Abolisher means I could play Imposter Mech on the stack, copy a Grand Abolisher, present protected, win. I could also copy something like Wan Shitong and start creating value, or I could copy a Timna and then start drawing cards. So there's a lot of great things you could do with this. And then Maskwood Nexus. Remember, all of these are grabbable off of Magda. So we are able to just kind of cheat these straight in. Imposter Mech and Maskwood Nexus being Defense Grid, sorry. Those 3 being the biggest ones. So Maskwood Nexus is for colorless. Creatures you control are every type. So the important part for that is they're pirates. That's about it. We'll go down to the enchantments. Like I said, we have a 3-drop away to turn creatures into pirates right here. So we could turn that Drift of Phantasms into Arcane Adaptation, which ETBs choose a creature type, make everything in the library and all your creatures pirates. We have Copy Enchantment, which is mostly used to copy Rhystic Studies. Whether people like it or not, Rhystic Study is in the format and it's incredibly strong. Being in control of Malcolm and Kediss and creating a ton of mana kind of makes it feel like having Smothering Tithe and Rhystic Study at times, where it's like I have all the cards that I need and all the mana to be able to interact. Try and stop me. So being able to copy that is very important. Curiosity, 1 blue, it's an aura, enchant a creature, and whenever enchanted creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. So, like I said, this is very important to put on some of those pieces like Malcolm, which could be very dangerous because obviously people already want to remove Malcolm, and then you put Curiosity on Malcolm. But it is a card that when Malcolm connects, you're going to start creating treasures and drawing cards, which can easily present fast wins. Mystic Remora, Affiliate Eye is Curiosity with Flash. And then Underworld Breach, like I said, combos with Lion's Eye and Brain Freeze as a backup win con, where we can just flashback Brain Freeze and mill out all of our opponents. Underworld Breach is also just generically a great way to be able to play cards from our graveyard, which a lot of times can just have us presenting a win and then representing a win. For the lands, there's a couple in here that are worth mentioning. Ancient Tomb, Crystal Vein, both trying to create you extra mana. City of Traders as well. being able to play those can oftentimes give you turn 1 or turn 2 Malcolms, and they really help with the consistency of being able to do so. Arena of Glory can give haste to a creature, so that can give us a hasty Malcolm if we need the extra treasures. Cavern of Souls, obviously named Pirate, make it so you can't counter a pirate. Hard to, there's not really much else to say about that. Fiery Izzet can help us draw a card if we need to. Like I said, a lot of times we have a surplus of mana, so when you have 12 treasures, you can sacrifice this land, draw a card, and hope that you could present a win that way. Mistrise Village can make the next spell uncounterable. Can be very important if you know somebody has a Force of Will in hand or something like that. They want to counter the Glinthorn. Well, I'll pay and Mistrise it. That way you can't counter the Glinthorn. Odawara's Interaction, and we have one Surveil land here. It's just free value. There's a couple cards in the sideboard and in the Considering for different options if you guys want to go ahead and look at those. I'm not going to go into great detail about them, but there are quite a few different options down here. Leyline of Transformation is a big card I used to play in the deck. I currently don't have it in there. I found that if I land the Leyline, that I am forcing my opponents to do something about it, but I feel like then my opponents become more scared of Malcolm. So I found that me having this out oftentimes meant that Malcolm would just get removed, which, obviously isn't very good. But a free way to be able to turn creatures into pirates can easily lead to turn 2 wins. So there's a chance that this ends up making it back in the deck, but I'm kind of testing without it right now. So I'm just going to highlight a couple interesting pieces in the deck, maybe different things, maybe things that people don't often see, or maybe just some interesting ways for people to look at the deck. So like I said, these both create a ton of mana. So keeping your eye out for transmute stuff is very helpful. There's also like Glinthorn Buccaneer, which can combo with Malcolm, but you can also put Curiosity on Glinthorn Buccaneer. And if you have, let's say, 8 cards in your hand, you'll go to your end step. You have to discard down for hand size. You'll discard a card. When you discard that card to discard down to hand size, Glinthorn Buccaneer sees that, which will put 1 damage on the stack. You'll deal the damage, which Curiosity will trigger, and draw you 3 cards. Then you'll go to your end step, discard 3 cards because you have to discard down to 7. And you'll keep doing this. Technically, you don't go to your end step. You're just in cleanup, and a trigger happens, makes you draw cards. So you're still in cleanup. You still have to discard down. As long as you have enough cards in your library, you kill the table. Like I said, NivMiz Perun also just putting Curiosity on NivMiz Perun can kill the table as well. Also, like I said, turning it into a pirate still just becomes free card draw and free treasures. It's really hard for the table to do anything once Perun's down, especially because if you want to hit face, you can. But you also could just start wiping creatures off. Siren Storm Tamer is the most important of the low to the ground pirates. The reason is it has 1 blue, sacrifice it, counter target spell or ability, targets a creature or you, a creature you control. So basically this becomes a 1-drop pirate that can trigger Malcolm to create a treasure, and also you could pay a blue to sacrifice it to counter them trying to remove Malcolm. Spellskite is a repeatable way to be able to protect Malcolm. I'm trying to think if there's anything else crazy worth mentioning. The big part of this deck really is that it's very straightforward. It doesn't feel like it is maybe sometimes, but it is. I mean, you want Malcolm down fast. I want to follow up with Kediss the turn after I play Malcolm. I want to present turn 3 or 4 wins by turning a creature into a pirate. If I'm not seeing a way where I could do that, then I want a Wan Shi Tong, Rhystic Study, and I want to start controlling the board down. Trying to figure out how I can control the board to get out a win. So that is the big portion of this deck. I don't usually do any play testing on here, but I'll just kind of run through my thought process on a couple starting hands to give you guys an idea of maybe where I'm at or what I think about certain things for the deck. So right off the bat, this hand looks interesting. We have a Misty Rainforest, which we can use to go get our dual land. We have a Lotus Petal and a Mana Vault. So this can be a turn 1 Malcolm with a turn 2 Kediss. We have a Windfall, so we would be able to discard our hand to draw more. I think that it's a pretty interesting hand. I think depending on where I'm at in turn order, who I'm playing against, I might keep it. It's a decent enough hand where it doesn't feel like a bad start. But it's also not a great hand, so it would depend on what order I'm in, who I'm playing against, different stuff like that. This hand is just unkeepable. It has free interaction to start off with, but you have 1 land. You're not going to want to gamble for much out of this, you know? It's just like, I'm not going to gamble for an Ancient Tomb and hope that I keep these kind of things. Obviously, it's got future potential with like Jessica's Will and stuff like that, but it's just not good enough. So I would go see a second 7. Second 7 is great. I mean, I have the ability to get down a turn 1 Malcolm, or a turn 2 Malcolm, which is very nice. I have a creature that wants to be turned into a pirate. I have an Underworld Breach for part of it, and I have VV Orniteer. So I'm most likely playing turn 2 Malcolm, turn 3 Kediss, maybe casting VV or just passing with those treasures, and then turn 4 trying to resolve a Jessica's Will to see if I could push for a win out of that. I also could see the argument of discarding or going down further, so let's just say we were going to go to 6. This hand's garbage. We would be disappointed. We'd be going to 5. This 5 is fine. It doesn't have a fast Malcolm, which is one thing I worry about, but you would be able to put this at the bottom, and you want to keep this, you want to keep this, you want both the lands, so you'd have to get rid of one of these. Probably keep a hand like this. It's leading into having these 2 out and having lands to be able to progress. Like I said, I would have kept the second 7, but just out of curiosity, I'd just like to go a little bit lower just to see how things would be. Like if this was a 4, I mean, you have 2 lands. You have a copy enchantment to hopefully be able to copy a Rhystic Study and a creature turned to a pirate. Wouldn't be the greatest hand, but wouldn't be the worst hand. And yeah, hope we don't have to go down to 3. Hope we wouldn't have to go down to 2. But let's say that you're going last in a game, and let's just shuffle up a couple random hands. So this would be my hand. Let's say that we're going 4th. Going 4th, this hand has a Chrome Mox and an Uncounterable Way. It doesn't have a second land, so there's no guarantee that I'm able to get Malcolm out. But I do have a Fairy Mastermind, which means I'd be able to play Cavern of Souls naming Pirate, Chrome Mox putting a Commandeer underneath it. I would have drawn for turn also. And then I'd be able to respond to someone if they draw by playing Fairy Mastermind, drawing a card, and then going to turn 2. This would have been, pretty disappointing not getting the other one, getting the other land, but it's not horrible. Hand would be unkeepable, unfortunately, because there's a fish. So you go down to 6. It's not fast, but we have a Study and Imposter mech, which is pretty nice. You're actually, interestingly, you could put back the Mistrise and keep the hand like this, which is what I think I would do. Like I said, not very fast, but I can draw for turn. I'm able to go get a surveil land to kind of set myself up. If someone plays an early study, I can commandeer it, just get rid of these two. Neither one of these are necessary to the deck. So being able to go and steal a Rhystic Study would be very nice. Also, like I said, we have a study in hand too. So chances are, if we're able to get something like an Ancient Tomb, I'll play another study. You know, I'll make sure no one wins. So that's kind of what, like I said, you want early Malcolm is like the first goal of what you're looking for. As you can see, some of those hands a little better than others for in terms of fast Malcolm, and then turn a creature into a pirate. I'm still kind of new to doing all the videos, so I apologize if I seem a little more sporadic and everything. I've just had a lot going on, so I'm trying to make the videos. It's a little bit different than my normal content for the regular videos, but this is what I've been trying to get into and trying to make more on. My goal is to just try to put out more cEDH deck techs of different weird, fun videos, different commanders that maybe don't get played as much, maybe shed some light on something that you guys are looking for, or maybe you guys didn't know you were looking for, to be able to try out. So I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you have a good day. Keep an eye out for more. I have a couple other cEDH decks sleeved up that I'd like to talk about. So look out for those videos to come soon. Peace out.